Aerith! Does anyone like her, or is it just me?
This is our date. It's with T.
Didn't see you there. Ah!
It's Tifa again.
Oh, she seems small. Is she smaller than Tifa? You know, most of the time when I make these videos, I might seem a bit overly positive about these figures when I get them, but that's mainly just because this is my favorite thing to do. Of course I'm gonna be positive while doing it, even though if the figure isn't as good as it could have been, or it's more expensive than it should have been. I paid for these weeks, if not months ago. I don't really think about the price when I'm unboxing them. And all of you people who point that out are obviously correct. They are too expensive and the quality could have been better. But most of the time, it doesn't really bother me, because the goal of my collection isn't to have the best figures in the world. My goal is to have all of the Final Fantasy VII figures in the world, if that makes sense. So to add a new figure to my collection is just a generally positive experience no matter what the figure is, because even if the figure is bad, I want to add it to my collection. And if it's really bad, that's just funny. Because then when I show off my collection, I can say like, this is my favorite, this is the best one quality-wise, this is the cheapest one, this is the most expensive one, and also this is the worst one, you know, and then you can say, wow, look at that. And then it becomes special because it is so bad. So quality isn't important to me. Getting the figure and adding it to my collection is what's important to me. So having said all that, this is the first time when it comes to these bring arts where I'm like, whoa, Cloud has weird things going on in his hips. Tifa has weird things in her shoulders. Apparently Aerith, they sacrificed her neck, because as you can see here, the part that's attached to her head is all the way in the back of her hair, which makes her neck seem really weird and long. See that? She's fully in right now. It's just that she's looking up and she looks like a giraffe.
You see this?
And that's terrible. Because if you want to pose her looking up for some reason, you basically can't, because it's gonna look really dumb. So what you have to do is you have to sort of bend her chest backwards and then bend her head forward like that. That's better. But it's not the end of the world. But it is disappointing. And she is probably the most awkward of these to pose now because of that. I'm certain she's gonna look great on my shelf once I put her there and then just never touch her again. But until then, I'm gonna be annoyed. Okay, so for the things that I like about her, they have gotten some details right that many other figures don't get right, actually. And that is that her bangles are not silver. They're actually supposed to be like a brass type of color, but here it's like a really light gold, which isn't bad. It actually looks pretty good. I'm also happy to see that she has her really wide hips relative to her skinny body that they have removed in her remake version. Also her shoulders, whoops. And see, her head is all messed up now. But also her shoulders, you know, that's a detail that can be hard to get right because it's, you know, easy to overdo it or underdo it and then it just looks weird. But I think the folds and everything that they have added here makes it look really good. And this is interesting. These button holes, I cannot feel them, I can just see them. So they have simply been painted on, but the weird thing is there's more buttonholes than there are buttons. I think that might be a misunderstanding of the source material, because I think they're supposed to be buttons all the way down, and this is just supposed to be folded up, as in it's just folded like that. But they have made that into like this fold that wraps around instead. This one is weird. I was just trying to make sense of this when I realized that this one has 9 buttons and altogether 9 buttonholes. She has 11 buttons and, you know, altogether 11 buttonholes. And she, the Bring Arts, has 9 buttons but 11 buttonholes. I think the scale is consistent and correct for these. And this is a bit of a milestone. This is the remake party. And I mentioned with these 3 that the color really blew me away. But as you saw with Aerith, the 2 others that I showed you, the color of Aerith has been fairly consistently good. So I wasn't as blown away by this one. But she does look good as well. There's plenty of things to complain about with the others. But I think this is definitely the worst one so far, unfortunately. you're not gonna become best girl like this, Aerith, you know? Do better. Alright, let's place her in the collection. And this is Aerith figure number 23. So even though I feel like I've been fairly negative about this figure in this video, I do still have to admit that when I look at her compared to all of my other Aerith figures, she does have a pretty nice face. It's very simple and very clean, and it looks exactly like we see her in the beginning of the original. So, you know, credit where it's due. And I guess we can blame the oddness with her dress on the concept art, because now that I've looked at it, it does seem like they have actually just sculpted it after the concept art to a fault, literally. As in, it doesn't really make sense now that we look at it, you know? So, yeah, that's just funny to me.